Hello there, everybody. Welcome to Pilgrim's Passport, and we're looking at the book of Job again today. Job chapter 2. We last left off with the poor old Job taking some pottery and scraping the sores off of his body. Now, one thing about the human body is you can have like an itch thing going on, and you're not supposed to scratch it. They tell you never. They tell you never to scratch it, right? All right, where's some of my? Okay, here you go. This is centuries old. Centuries, a couple of thousand years at least. Time of Jesus. Well, and I got one piece in the museum, and the missus got everything locked up there for the display, so I don't break it because we have a piece from King David's time. Can you imagine? We have a oil lamp from the time of King David. Well, anyway, you can imagine, did you ever get the itchies for whatever reason? And in your mind, you're thinking, I can keep scratching this thing all night. And then you fall asleep and you wake up and it's like the pains of Job. Well, yes. Time of Jesus, some pottery. Would you like a piece of pottery? We have plundered the state of Israel. So I have a lot of seashells from the Sea of Galilee. And we'll send you some pottery if you like it. There's no charge. If you can help out with the mailing, maybe that would be good. But if you're in town and you're at Maranatha, just we'll arrange giving you a piece. From the time of Jesus and onward and backwards, it's really interesting stuff. So you can just see old Job out there. And then we come, okay, so then we come to, it's all right. Now you know why the King David piece is locked up. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and afflicted Job with painful sores from the soles of his feet. Look at those feet. Oh, man, they turned into my mother's feet. A long time ago, one of my grandchildren said, Pop, what's with your feet? It's like, and I had great feet all my life. Great feet. And then turning 60 or so, all of a sudden, because my mother, I used to sit there, this is only a mother-son story. And she would come home from a hard day's work, Metropolitan Life Insurance Company. She was way ahead of her time as an executive there. And I'd have to make her a bologna sandwich, which I promptly put one slice on and a little bit of mustard. And she said, "Are you paying for this?" Good old times with Mom that I can remember. And then I would have to shave her feet. And the calluses would rip off and stuff. And the feet can be also very tender. They really, you'd be surprised the nerves that are in your feet. I can't even imagine when Jesus was crucified. When they plunged the nails through his feet. You just, and as you get older, you get these little maladies. And they hurt. They hurt. You can't even compare them to these great times of sufferings that people go through in their life. So that's a memory that I have with my mother. I didn't have any pottery from Israel, but I would have scraped it off with something, I'm sure. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord, and he did his number on Job. And his wife said to him, verse 9. So here we go, chapter 2, verse 9. Ready, guys? Are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die. Well, we got the insurance policies in set, that's for sure. You're the head honcho around here for years, and now look at what's going on. Now remember, now in that time, and where do we get into Job's friends? With friends like them, who needs boils? Friends. I've had a lot of friends like that, but fortunately I got some good friends too. And so he replied, Job said to his missus, "You are talking like a foolish woman. And the Hebrew word rendered foolish denotes moral deficiency. And forget what women were thought about in those days. Basically, you're just property. You didn't have any rules for divorce for yourself or anything like that. A guy can divorce people all they want. Until Jesus came on the scene and elevated marriage to its proper torturous conclusions. And you will notice. And look, I love my wife. We're married over 30 some odd years now. I mean, everything that's said is said, known, it doesn't matter. And it's good to be, it's just good to come to the end of your life having lived with someone that you're running on full agape. And it's a wonderful thing. It really is. It's a wonderful thing to run on that. So when he says you're talking like a foolish woman, he really was nipping at her relationship with God. We're still, and Paul uses the Roman guide to family living when he talks about husbands, treat your wives with respect as the weaker vessel, and wives, treat your husbands, and so on and so forth. That's a Roman model, and although in Rome, under the Roman law, women could divorce their husbands, and Jesus even addressed that particular issue. And he really did talk about these familial problems that can come up in any Christian's life, in anybody's family. And what I like about the book of Job, what I like about the New Testament, I mean, and so much to like, is it tells you what Jesus really thought of women and how transitions were coming. I mean, how could Paul even say something like, in the church, there's neither male nor female? That's a pretty heavy distinction. And when you look at the book of Revelation to the elders, it's all masculine form, but we know that we are priests and kings, queens, if you will, together. But after the resurrection, there will be no marriage. And God has a completely different plan as time goes on. Some of you might be smirking out there a little bit, but listen, it can be really tough on a Christian family at times, and we all go through those times. But I thank the Lord for my family, and I like I say, you just have to approach everything as you would through the scriptures and recognize that these things are going to happen. There are breaking points in people's lives who view you, say, as the leader of your honcho there, and and again, this isn't a time now when women weren't working. Proverbs 31 is well advanced as far as women taking a big part of the economic part of the family. And that's a wonderful thing to see. Proverbs 31, if you don't want to read it. But basically, when you're going back that far, she was just property. And howbeit loved, and she saw her whole world fall around her. I mean, we're not even up to finishing chapter 2, and we got Job, his whole family bumped off. I mean, man, and in one day he gets one message after another. Like I said, I'm doing a Bible study series, how to avoid text messaging. So get back to me on that one. So anyway, you're talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble? Wow. In all this, Job did not sin by what he said. And I can see it now too, like especially when you're born again, when you're saved, and someone in your family dies. Maybe they didn't know the Lord. I mean, in the end, let's leave the final judgment to God. But the peace that Christians have amongst themselves when someone who they've lived with for a long, long time dies. The void is still heavy in life, and if you're young enough, you can rebuild another family. That's a wonderful thing. But basically, when you get to a certain age, you just, and everything you were used to, the good, the bad, the ugly, is all of a sudden gone. And prolonged illnesses are one thing. But when you look at a sudden death, it's mind-boggling. And as I said, if you're older, your chances at trying to come up with a new life aren't as good. There are people that do it, and I say God bless them for it. You go for it. And so here we go. And this is one of the things where, if you can think back with me at every movie where there's a burial scene, this particular verse is often read. And here it is. You ready? When Job's three friends, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, shortest man in the Bible, bad Baptist joke, and Zophar the Naamanite, heard all about the troubles that had come upon him, and they sent out from their homes and met together by agreement to go and sympathize with him and comfort him. Man, I can go into a whole study on the difference between sympathy and empathy, but we've only got so much time for this particular one. Sympathy is the lower part of the higher empathy, to be empathetic. There are people with social disorders that have no empathy. They see people as absolute objects of their play. Everything is a play in their life, and then they tend to be domineering, powerful, and it's not a very nice thing to see. But anyway, at the outset, these are guys pretty good friends, and but even friends are going to let you down. There is one that sticks closer than a brother, and that's Jesus. Jesus will never let you down. You can take that to the bank. He'll never let you down. People will let you down. Even your best friends will let you down, and you'll let them down. It's just a part of humanity. That's why Jesus said the ultimate, the diamond, the facet of the faith is forgiveness. Forgiving people. Forgiving people who are Christians for some of the hardest attitudinal personality problems that you can possibly convey. But oftentimes God will bring people like that into our lives, so we're tested, because if we just remain, if we hold to be bitterness, it becomes a cancer. It's a cancer of the soul. And anyway, so basically, they come by agreement, and when they saw him from a distance, now this is something I've experienced in life, they could hardly recognize him. They began to weep aloud. They loved the guy. I mean, they were friends. And they tore robes, sprinkled dust on their heads. Then they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights. No one said a word to him, because they saw how great his suffering was. Now, if you go back to the last verse in chapter 1, this is the one I was talking about. In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. And this is the one you see read. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. Now, there are people who live rich, full lives, and pretty much the norm. But then there are those that they lose children way before the time. Untold of it. And we've come a long way in curing or stemming off the cancer. St. Jude's, as a matter of fact, I'm a part of this program with St. Jude's, and I have to say, I reluctantly participated, and I'm very pleased with this, with St. Jude's, and their aftercare and stuff. I have a little diary here I'm supposed to keep. And what's really great about this thing so far now, I had to take a lot of pain medication for the past 4 weeks. Today, it's the first day now, it's the 5th day of the trial. I've taken 2 pills, where by now, say yesterday or the day before yesterday, I've taken 12 pills. So something's cooking in here, and I go, wow, that's great. This may be a keeper, so you pray for me on this here. But we've come a long way with this kind of stuff. And I mean, there are people who suffer pain. My surgeon, he just, for my last few visits, he would just look at me and go, because there's nothing they can do. The damage is so extensive. And like, I wish I could say, yeah, I was at the mall and I took out a couple of terrorists, So yeah, No, it's years of radio programs. You're heading one direction. And years now, especially since the computerized age, of looking at the computer like this all day. And you're working, you're not out there playing pasteroids and stuff. You're doing your thing, and but this is a red line for me. There's nothing we can do. Now we can help control the pain. And there's all these different types of programs they get you into. And but we've come a long way. And now, listen, I tell you something. The book of Job becomes extremely relevant for us as we go through each phase of our lives. Now, in my early 20s, up to my mid 30s, because I remember even the very early days of the Jesus movement and revival, I started to get these pinched nerves that would end me in the hospital. And in those days, they'd put you in the hospital for a week or two, not like now. I won't even get into what the healthcare system's like now. But they got it worked out enough so that you can get the help you need when you really need it. And boy, this, I think I went for about 8 to 10 years, seldom ever having to take a pain medication. My last epidural, my L4, L5, the whole herniated disc, bulging disc thing that you've all, for the most part, have experienced. And it stuck for 8 to 10 years. It was like, wow, man, this is unbelievable. And then now with this, but at least now you got MRIs. The guy who invented the MRI was with me on my second trip to Israel. Well, of course, I can't remember his name right now, but trust me, he was there. And he invented the MRI. And now they have perfected the MRI to a point where you don't have to feel in tuned. And I know some of you, in your little petite bodies, you get in there and it's like you're in tuned. I couldn't even make it 30 seconds. But now they have these open ones that get all you need to get. And because unless you were totally drugged, you couldn't even be in there. My first doctor sent me off to this MRI. I haven't had one in years. And I'm a tough guy from the Bronx. I get in that little thing. Yeah, 30 seconds. 30 seconds I lasted. But of course, my doctor didn't give me any kind of tranquilizer or anything. Second time with the new guy, he had it right. And but then we see all this going on. So I'm sitting back like I said, well, now with Job, we know a restoration's coming. Job was a young man. And he gets restored double, all the rest of that stuff. It's a funky story at the end. We're looking into it together because there are a couple of theories about the end. Does God raise his other children and bring them back, or does he give them a new family? I don't know. I'm focusing on what we're doing here. So anyway, here they are, and they weeping aloud with him, and I don't know if you've ever seen anybody who is in intense pain. I have. I have done hospital visits throughout all these years where I would hear people screaming for a nurse. And I'm looking at the nurses at their station and nobody's doing anything. And once in a while I had a little chutzpah and I would say, this lady's like screaming her guts out. I mean, she's in pain. Well, I'm sorry, the pain medication cannot be given for another 4 hours and 20 minutes and 13 seconds. Yeah, okay. No. Dose me, lady. Well, I mean, screaming at the top of their lungs, these people. We've come a long way with that, too, by the way. We have come a long way in managed pain care. It's gotten out of hand, it really has, with the drug problem in our country. I was the first one to moan and groan when they took Darvocet off the it was a great, safe painkiller. But people started to use them improperly, and were getting liver problems because they kept taking for the narcotic and the Tylenol that's in it. And do you know the only reason that the Tylenol is in this stuff is so people don't cut it some way where they can only get the narcotic. I mean, this is insane, but that's the world, that people will do anything to escape stress. They'll do anything. And so we've come a very, very long way. And but it was very uncomfortable for me. And I have visited with young people who died of AIDS. Not a very pleasant sight, man. Just not. You know, when the immune system breaks down to the point where we were cursed in the 70s, and you know, we could all curse the dark and why it all came here and all, you know, sex with monkeys and things. I don't know. But I'm just grateful that we've come to a place where even those with immoral lifestyles are being spared, and are being spared mercifully. And it's because you never know, people will come to know the Lord; they'll get saved. And but by the grace of God, I was literally saved from immorality by my staunch Roman Catholic upbringing, and that was it. I was a virgin till the day I got married. And I had plenty of opportunities, but I'll tell you what, man. The value of life was so instilled in me. In no way, I'm going to screw up a situation where some woman's going to have to go out and get an abortion. I don't want any part of that. I don't think we should have to pay attention. People who live these lifestyles and they get pregnant, fine. And now, for the most part, it's a form of contraception. You know, I need to get pregnant, get an abortion. You know, leaves damaging effects, man. It leaves damaging effects. And so, I know exactly how they feel. See, that's the difference now. At this stage in my life where I've lived a long time as a minister, over 40 years, where and God gives you a certain gift of grace to be in a situation like that. Now, I would go to a hospital room and visit with someone who grabbing you like this, and there's so much pain, and they got morphine in them, and it has to be a capacity, a gift by God's Holy Spirit that you can even do that. But I'll tell you one thing. You may have just been at that hospital 1 hour. What's 1 hour in a day's work? What's 1 hour? Well, you feel like you boxed 6 rounds and lost for the rest of the day because your output was on such overflow that it was hard to even be happy. You know, I remember various hospital calls during the holidays, Christmas time especially, and I would leave for the hospital, and I would come home a totally depressed person, not believing what I've just seen and experienced, and it was hard to get back in the groove. Now, God does give us, by the way, the capability to do that. It's not a selfish thing. It really isn't. But there's certain disassociative gifts, if you will. Because can you imagine if someone was just like cops, just like soldiers, just like doctors? Can you imagine if they took every single patient's life to heart? Yeah. So you can grant them that understanding. Same thing as a minister. I had a morbid fear of funeral parlors growing up as a child, and yet, surprise, surprise, I become a minister, and I was around dead bodies all the time. I'm sitting there a couple of hours even before the service, and there they are, and how you doing, brother, sister? Well, you're not there, I know, and all like that. And you're granted a certain peace. Now, it depends on how well you knew the individual and etc. Some people, by the way, like and we'll see with Job's friends how it turns out. They're all there to tell him why this happened. And we'll open up with the third chapter now, and then we'll wrap it up because we're almost at the half-hour point, and I want to be able to cut these at about 30 minutes, 15 minutes or 30 minutes, just to absorb everything that you've heard. After this, Job opened his mouth. So 7 days, 7 nights, the guys are there just looking at him, screaming pain, scratching up with pottery. And he finally opens his mouth. And what does he do? Curse the day of his birth. Curse the day of his birth. Have you ever done that? Have you ever been honest enough in life where you said, you know what? I don't need this. I don't need this. Especially if you're saved. You know, you get caught betwixt the two. You know, King James, betwixt the two. You want to go to heaven and be with Jesus, and yet you know the Lord has you doing what you're doing. Life can get like that sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes it gets like that. You get this escapist thing. So he says, cursed be the day of his birth, that he was born. Now, remember now, in those days, they celebrated birthdays. Job's children had birthday bashes. Don't tell the Jehovah's Witnesses that one. May the day of my birth perish, and the night that said, a boy is conceived. That day, may it turn to darkness. May God above not care about it. May no light shine on it. May gloom and utter darkness claim it once more. May a cloud settle over it. May blackness overwhelm it. That night, may thick darkness seize it. May it not be included among the days of the year, nor be entered into any of the months. May that night be barren. May no shout of joy be heard. May those who curse days curse that day. Those who are ready to rouse Leviathan. That's an old reference to, there's a satanic allusion to it. The Leviathan, the great adversary of God, and that creation caused wreaking havoc and all that stuff. Just look it up in any good, just online. Just Leviathan, you'll get all the biblical side views on that one. May its morning stars become dark. May it wait for daylight in vain and not see the first rays of dawn. It's almost strangely, it's very eerie when you understand about how many abortions have taken place in this country. And I mean, and this may shock you, but I believe if the life of the mother is at risk, truly at risk, and she has 4 other kids, yes, that's a situation where there is a tragic difference. You may disagree with me on that one, but better they should have a mother. But that's just philosophical, and we can, work that into the ground. He saves the needy from the sword in their mouth. He saves them from the clutches of the powerful. And blessed is the one whom God corrects, so do not I'm sorry, guys. I just cut ahead of my page here. Forgive me. I'm sorry. For sighing has become my daily food. What I feared has come upon me. Now that's the one. That's the kind of verse that guys like Kenneth Hagin, F.W. Kenyon, Copeland, Frederick Price, any health wealth preacher you can think of will hone in on a verse like this, and you say, you see, here's the problem. What I feared has come upon me. If you did not have the fear, if you had the faith, this would not have come upon you. Balderdash. Stick it in your ear, okay? Of course it would have come upon him. Terrible Bible teachers out there, guys. You may deem me one. You get what you pay for. Pay for what you get. I have no rest, but only turmoil. So we'll pick up now. Enter the friends. Enter the friends in the fray. Have you had faithful friends in those days? Yeah, I remember them too. God bless you all. See you soon.